Ayuwanna. I'm Dr. Udeshika. Today we are at Ayuwanna, Barberyn Ayurveda Medical Center in Colombo. Today we are doing our webinar from here. So we will see around a little bit.
Ayuwanna, this is our consultation room.
This is one of our treatment room. This is one of our another treatment room which we do in Shirodara. Let's have a look on our herbal bath. This is our herbal bath. Many of the guests visited to Barberyn. This place is familiar with them. Stay with us. In a couple of minutes, we will start our discussion in Ayuwanna garden with Dr. Thenuwara. Ayubowan. Ayur Rashmin Vidyate Nenava Ayur Vindhatitya Ayurveda. If any science help teach us to practice healthy longer life, it is called Ayurveda. The purpose of this Ayurveda is to prevent from diseases and to promote healthy lifestyle. Most of our guests know about some theoretical parts of Ayurveda, and also they always asking, Doctor, what is the history of Ayurveda? Where this Ayurveda came from? So through this our webinar today, we are ready to discuss about the history of Ayurveda and the history of our indigenous medicinal system called Hela Vedakama and Deshiya Chikitsa. For this discussion, here with me Dr. Thenuwara from our Barberyn Ayurveda Institute. Ayubowan, Doctor.
Ayuwanna.
Doctor, today I am going to ask several questions from you. These are not only our questions, from most of our guests asking daily when they come to our treatments. And my first question, we know that Ayurveda has nearly 5,000 years old, very long history. And what is this Ayurveda and what is the history of this Ayurveda?
Yes, as you mentioned, Ayurveda is accepted as the world's oldest traditional medicine practice. So it is believed that it has nearly 5,000 years of history. When we thinking about its written history, it actually longs for 3,000 years ago. Why I am saying like this? Because whatever the authentic text that we use to describe and elaborate the concepts and the principles in Ayurveda, like Charaka Samhita, Susruta Samhita, like that. So, these were written more than 3000 years ago. So, the history analysts, they also confirmed about this matter, the language used at that time, the very older forms of the Sanskrit, and the other things they also considered to confirm this matter, and it is believed the world oldest traditional medicine practice is Ayurveda. So, we have nearly 3000, more than 3000 years of written history, as well as, and it is believed all over the world that it was origin nearly 5000 years back, because it is one of the creations of the Mahabrahma.
Okay, and many people know about this Ayurveda, and there's another word called Hela Vedakama. Doctor, what is this Hela Vedakama and what is the history of this Hela Vedakama?
Yes, Dr. Udeshika. So, in our world, in the countries, the regions, or into the nations, if we move into these categories, each of them have their own traditional medicine practice that may consider as the alternative forms of the medicinal practice. So, during the evolution, even the very underdeveloped human even use these herbs as their medicinal things. So, we can't actually say this is the exact time period that humans started the medicines or started a medicinal system for treating their ailments and the illnesses. So, Deshiya Chikitsa is the existing traditional medicine practice in Sri Lanka. Now, for example, I told you all the countries and the regions, they have their own medicinal practices. So, if I am moving to the North India, they have the Ayurveda. If it is in South India, that is the Siddha. If it is in the Mediterranean and the Arabic region, that would be the Unani medicine. Likewise, the Sri Lanka, it has its own medical practice that is called as Deshiya Chikitsa. A similar word describing the particular medical system, it is the Hela Vedakama. But recently, Ayurveda and Hela Vedakama both are blended and bound together, and in a very strong relationship. We can't actually separate these two from each other, but still Deshiya Chikitsa has its own endemic features. So, I will talk about these endemic nature of our traditional Deshiya Chikitsa in a little bit more.
Doctor, then you told that before that Ayurveda origin from the sacred mind of Mahabrahma, and if it is origin from then how it introduced to this human world, because Mahabrahma is not a human being?
Yes, doctor. So, it is not a one day process. It has taken nearly thousands of years when it comes from the sages or the gods to the human world. So, I have to say this. So, in the scriptures like Charaka Samhita, Susruta Samhita, they say the Mahabrahma has created all the concepts of Ayurveda came to his mind before he had an idea to create the universe. So, Susruta Samhita, it confirms this ideology that Mahabrahma has created Ayurveda before he created the universe, because the Ayurveda has that much of old history than the universe. Then Mahabrahma has created this world, and after several decades or after several millennia, then people the human got ill. As an option, the gods, they are actually taking care of this universe. So, they actually thought what could be the best option to get rid of these sick people from their sickness. In that case, the answer was introducing Ayurveda to human world. So, I told you this was a creation of Mahabrahma. Then Mahabrahma, he has given whatever he has created. So, the Ayurveda whole concept, it has 100,000 of stanzas, we call them as Ayurvedic shlokas, and this is called as the Ayurveda Samhita. This Ayurveda Samhita, which was originally created by Mahabrahma, it has 1000 chapters. 1000 chapters and 100,000 stanzas that talks about the whole philosophies and the concepts in Ayurveda. Then these 100,000 of stanzas, as it was given by the Mahabrahma to the Daksha Prajapati. He was a supranatural god in the god panel, and so Daksha Prajapati was very fortunate because he obtained whatever created by the Mahabrahma himself. Then Daksha Prajapati has given his knowledge of Ayurveda to a pair of princes. Those are called Ashwini prince. They considered as the doctors of the god panel. So, they were the clinicians or the practitioners who treat to the gods or to the sages. So, then these pair of princes, they actually learned from the Daksha Prajapati, and they have given whatever they have about Ayurveda to the chief of the god panel, that is called Indra. So, Indra is the ruler of the god, and he is the ruler to the human world as well. Then he realized and he understood there are lot of ailments, diseases and lot of discomfort natures are all around this universe, and people suffer from it. Then he was very sad, and he asked one of the representative to learn Ayurveda from him and bring this back to the human world and give the knowledge of Ayurveda to them. So, Indra selected a very bright, very clever and excellent representative. He was called as the Bharadwaja. Then this Bharadwaja god, he came to the human world with the knowledge of Ayurveda, and he has given it to the main two schools. So, those two schools are called Dhanvantari school as well as the Atreya school. So, then he has these two students who learn them very faster and grab whatever the major parts of the Ayurveda, and they realized much. So, from the Dhanvantari school, they have started the surgical approaches of Ayurveda. So, that is called the surgical approach in Ayurveda, Dhanvantari part. So, the best student of Dhanvantari was the Susruta, and he has written the Susruta Sanghita, and the Susruta was accepted as the father of surgery even in the modern medical surgeries. And the other part I told you, it was the Atreya school. Atreya was the chief of that school, and Atreya has plenty of bright student. So, Atreya, the direct student of Atreya was Agnivesha. So, Agnivesha's student was Charaka. So, Charaka has written Charaka Samhita, which actually approaches into more detail about the Ayurveda as well as the bodily treatments used in Ayurveda, such as the decoctions, medicinal preparations, like that. So, Susruta Samhita, they revealed about the surgical part of the Ayurveda and the treatment part. Other than the surgeries, what is mentioned in Ayurveda was superbly described in the Charaka Samhita as it is. So, this is the way, this is the path of Ayurveda came to the human world from the gods. So, I told you this is not a one-day process, and it has taken nearly thousands of years to came it into the human world.
Okay, as Doctor told that Susruta Sanghita mentioned that Mahabrahma created this Ayurveda before he created this human being, and that called Susruta Ayurveda Sanghita. And this Ayurveda Sanghita have 1 lakh of shlokas and 1000 volumes. But all these stories are historical stories, and there are a lot of reviews and opinions on this. Then Doctor, the Ayurveda in India and the Ayurveda what we are doing in Sri Lanka, is it similar or is there any difference?
Almost similar. What I am saying is, at the beginning I told you Ayurveda from India and Deshiya Chikitsa, the traditional medicine practice which is established in Sri Lanka already, are bound together, and they have a very stronger relationship, and we can't split it and we can't distinguish one from each other. But I told you these two have more similarities, as well as the Deshiya Chikitsa itself has its unique features. So, almost they are similar, but some distinguished points we can point out according to the Sri Lankan Deshiya Chikitsa.
Yes, and doctor told that this Ayurveda and this Deshiya Chikitsa combine very thoroughly, and we can see a lot of similarities also. Doctor, is there any unique features of this Hela Vedakama?
Yes. Before I move into talking about the uniqueness, I will little bit explain about the similarities that found with these two medicine practices. So, we know that Tridosha concept is also found in Ayurveda as well as in the Sri Lankan Deshiya Chikitsa. The Saptadhatu, the structure of the body and the function of the body, and the basic treatment plans including the Panchakarma, oleations, fermentations, all of these are mentioned in the Deshiya Chikitsa as well. So, then we have to think about what are the distinguished points, what are the significant or the endemic points to the Sri Lankan Deshiya Chikitsa or to the Hela Vedakama. So, in Hela Vedakama, it is widely used the secondary medicine than the primary medicines. So, there are 5 types of primary medicines basically described in Ayurveda, even in the Charaka Samhita. So, those would be the fresh juices of the plant materials, we call them as the Swarasa. Then they talk about the Kalka. So, a powder is an example for this dry Kalkas, and the third one would be, as everyone knew, that is the Kashaya, the decoction, and the fourth one would be the Hima Kashaya. So, that is the cold decoction, and the last one would be the Panta, and we can call them as the hot infusions or the instant made decoctions. So, in the Deshiya Chikitsa, rather using these primary medicine, they actually focus into the secondary medicine. Secondary medicine means those are made using 2 or more primary medicinal combinations. For example, there are oils, pills, and some modified paste, there are some gargles and some chewing paste such as avaleha, like that. So, in Deshiya Chikitsa, they widely used pills and kalkas rather used in Ayurveda. So, there is a special book written for Sri Lankan Deshiya Chikitsa, that is called Vatika Prakaranaya. So, it has a history of more than 200 years from recent. So, it has nearly 200s of formula that can used for different disease applications, and even the same pill can be used for nearly 100 of disease by changing the vehicle or by the supportive medicine that we use. And that is one good point, and the other one is the traditional medicine system has some modified versions of the primary medicinal practices. Now, for example, everyone knew that. So, we have some oleation processes that is described in Ayurveda. So, in Deshiya Chikitsa also has these oleation processes, but the way that we follow it is different. Especially for the psychological diseases, there are a lot of oleation methods are found. So, these things are actually found in the Sri Lankan Deshiya Chikitsa only. And the other one is the involvement of the Buddhism to promote and to maintain and to protect or to the conserve of the Deshiya Chikitsa into the recent ages. Why I am saying that? The place, the location where we could study the Deshiya Chikitsa was the temple. So, the Buddhist monks were actually the physicians. So, there are a lot of scriptures written in Deshiya Chikitsa, actually they were written by the Buddhist monk. So, in Sri Lanka we have the Deshiya Chikitsa vocabulary that was also written by one of the Buddhist monks. So, the involvement of the Buddhism is also a highlighting part regarding the uniqueness of Deshiya Chikitsa in Sri Lanka.
That was interesting, and Doctor previously explained about this origin from Ayurveda to human world. That is also very interesting story. And Doctor, with these stories I would like to ask one thing. This is my last question, and I want to ask that how this Ayurveda introduced to Sri Lanka?
Yes, it is a good question. So, now I told you several times, and these two are bound together with a very stronger relationship, and we can't actually say this is the exact way that Ayurveda has blended or Ayurveda has been introduced to Sri Lanka. So, there are three main points I can discuss with you. The first one is, so I told you then Indra was actually was in a confusion because he realized Indra was the chief of the god panel, and he realized the human in the world got suffered from lot of diseases. Then he actually thinking about what could be the best option. Then he has summoned a conference of the sages and the gods to talk about the options and what are the alternative platforms that they can activate to minimize the effects from the diseases to the human world. For this conference, this was happened at Himalaya, and for this conference one representative went from Sri Lanka, and at that time our country was not called as Sri Lanka itself, and in the books it says that the Lankapura. So, from Lankapura a representative went to Himalaya and he has participated to the particular conference. So, that representative was Pulasti Rishi, and he was a sage, and he was the ruler at that time to the Lankapura, that means the Sri Lanka. And as everyone know, so Pulasti was the grandfather of Ravana. So, then Pulasti has participated, he was a clinician as well as a ruler. Then his grandson is Ravana, and he was the well popular king or sage in Sri Lanka before the written history established in Sri Lanka. And even this king Ravana has written different textbooks related with the different fields, and some of them were medical books. So, from the names Kumara Tantraya, Udesha Tantraya, like that. So, Nadi Shastraya. So, those were medical books written by the king Ravana. So, king Ravana was the grandson of the representative at the authentic Himalayan Ayurvedic conference. That is the first point, but it is actually a belief. It is a belief because we can't actually find any scientific evidence to prove or disprove this this opinion. The second one would be, we know that from India time to time different people came. So, then King Vijaya, actually the Prince Vijaya came from the North India, and with him 700 of clans, 700 of other people or friends of him came to Sri Lanka. Then it is believed in that clan there were some traditional medicinal practitioners, that means who has done Ayurveda and who were Ayurvedic physicians. They also came with King Vijaya, and they made some settlements in Sri Lanka in different places. From them Ayurveda came to Sri Lanka, and they got bound with the Sri Lankan traditional medicine system. And the third one is the most reasonable one. That means after few years back from the Vijayas, the few years means few centuries back after the Vijayas visit to Sri Lanka. So, a Buddhist monk came from India, that is called Mahinda Thero. Then with the Mahinda Thero, after his arrival to Sri Lanka, and he has requested from India another group of people to come Sri Lanka and started some different different fields in Sri Lanka, such as the industries, some Buddhism teachings like that. So, there are different series of fields, and the people who have done the particular fields and who were excellent in these fields, and they were requested and called to Sri Lanka, and with those people some Ayurvedic clinicians came and they started their medicinal practices in Sri Lanka. From that these two got bound, and they got established, that we can find now in Sri Lanka.
Okay. Doctor, we heard about that the world oldest hospital we founded in Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka. Can you explain about that little bit?
Yes, this is actually a well confirmed matter, Dr. Udeshika, because the world oldest hospital was established at Anuradhapura, the particular region called as the Mihintale. So, still we found the ruins of it. So, this was built by King Sena II, and he was a ruler of Anuradhapura kingdom. And before that, the first medical record in Sri Lanka was the first ruler of Sri Lanka accepted as King Pandukabaya, and he has built a lining home. In our words, it is called as the Sivika Shala. So, still some ruins of this Sivika Shala are found at Anuradhapura, and this would be the first evidence, archaeological evidence, that proves some medical background in Sri Lanka. Then to be a king in Sri Lanka, he should know different types of skills. Army, that means the weapon skills, ruling skills, managing skills, as well as this clinical skills. So, there were a lot of kings in our hierarchy of the kings. There were some kings, they actually more prominent than a clinician, than he did the ruling part of the country. Best example was King Buddhadasa. So, King Buddhadasa was one of the kings at Anuradhapura era, Anuradhapura kingdom, and he was a well known surgeon at that time. So, he has made different hospitals and some medical dispensaries, as well as he has done lot of surgeries to human, not only to human, but also to the animals. So, this was clearly recorded in the historical books of Sri Lanka. And one thing I have told, because I told you there are several types of traditional medicine practices also found in Sri Lanka. So, from the Anuradhapura kingdom, the kingdom has changed into Polonnaruwa. So, Polonnaruwa was very confused time, because there were a lot of attacks from the South India. So, with these South Indian attacks, and some rulers came from South India, and they have introduced the Siddha medicine to Sri Lanka after Ayurveda. So, when it comes to the Kandy region, Kandy kingdom time, so the Unani medical system introduced to Sri Lanka from the Arabic merchants. But when it comes to the western ruling periods in Sri Lanka, actually the Ayurveda became into the alternative form of medical practice in Sri Lanka.
Actually, this is very interesting topic to speak about, and also I hope that you gather a lot of interesting details about this history of Ayurveda and history of our Hela Vedakama and Deshiya Chikitsa. Thank you dear guest for joining us our webinar today, and thank you Dr. Chamal for sharing your valuable information with us. I hope you will enjoyed today's video, and also stay with us for more Ayurvedic videos. Stay safe and see you on next Sunday. Ayuwanna.